With UFC 265 lacking somewhat in terms of star power and depth on the main card, it still does possess one of the most colorful characters in promotional history.
Derrick, why'd you take your pants off?
It was my was hot. I'm from Texas. I'm not with all this snow, man. Y'all can have that for real. I'm holding my gas in and trying to breathe at the same time. I just didn't want in front of national TV.
What's your issue with Daniel?
He disrespect that Popeye's chicken on a commercial for years.
While Lewis might be one of a kind on the microphone, make no mistake, he has the type of power that can separate you from your consciousness in a split second. And no man in company history has more knockouts inside the octagon than the Black Beast. But the one thing Lewis lacks on his impressive UFC resume is a championship belt, as he fell short in his first attempt against former double champ Daniel Cormier. Now healthier than he's been in years and riding a 4-fight win streak, Lewis will get a shot at the interim crown, but has a very dangerous opponent in front of him. Ciryl Gane hasn't been in the UFC long, but he made his impact felt right away. In less than 2 years after making his octagon debut, the unbeaten Frenchman will get his chance to hoist a title. Ultimately, the real prize for the winner will be getting a shot at the undisputed belt and quite possibly the baddest man on the planet in Francis Ngannou, who will seize the moment in Lewis's hometown return to Houston, Texas. Expect fireworks early at UFC 265.
All right, this is what it looks like. UFC 265 going down in Houston, Texas. The interim heavyweight championship on the line in the main event. Houston's own Derrick Lewis takes on the surging undefeated French contender in Ciryl Gane. In the co-main, it's Jose Aldo taking on fellow Brazilian contender Pedro Munoz. And 265 also features a matchup of top 10 welterweights. Vicente Luque takes on Michael Chiesa, and that one to keep an eye on. How about we welcome in the host of the Morning Combat Podcast, our dynamic duo, and Brian Campbell and Luke Thomas. For all things UFC 265, let's start with the third-ranked heavyweight in the world. Ciryl Gane comes in undefeated, 9-0, 6-0 in UFC since making his debut in 2019. Comes in as a sizable minus 360 favorite. This according to Caesars Sportsbook. Brian, I'll start with you. Describe the style of fighting that Gane brings to the octagon on Saturday night.
Yeah, Ciryl Gane may have a short background in fighting, only been in the sport of MMA for 3 years and did 4 years of professional Muay Thai before that. But on his feet, he has the technique, the movement of a seasoned veteran. This is a guy who compares himself a bit to Floyd Mayweather, maybe from the standpoint if he goes in there to hit and not get hit. Yet at 6'5" with a muscular frame, he moves a bit like a middleweight in there. Very tough guy to keep up with, sets good footwork patterns, lands clean and accurate shots. This is why you see him this big as a favorite, not just because what he's done in that short sample size, but because what he's shown you. 5-round elite stamina for a guy who may not have the title experience or even face the same level of guys across the board that Derrick Lewis has. But of the big names he's faced, Alexander Volkov, Jairzinho Rozenstruik, Ciryl Gane has looked to very much be the real deal. He's rightfully the favorite entering into this fight. Not going to get tired, and he knows how to control distance inside that cage.
What you see there is not a ton of experience. Derrick Lewis is for sure going to have the edge there. But where Ciryl Gane shines is, the best way to explain it, in my view, is he's just a modern fighter. He has a very modern game. What does that mean? Well, obviously at heavyweight and being big and strong and athletic, he does have big power on occasion, but that really doesn't define his game. More so, what I would say is it's distance management, it's real estate, it's setups, it's entries, it's exits. What he is very good at is not pulling the pin on the grenade, but putting it back in. He is very good at neutralizing opponents where they can't really do a whole lot to him. He lands and gets out of the way. He has a great jab. He has good command of range when he needs it. He can get in, he can get out. As BC indicated, he has great footwork. Sometimes he can wow you with his power. Sometimes, unfortunately, he can make you a little bit bored with how the rounds go on. He is very good at winning rounds over the course of time. That's a particular style of fighting. It's not a statement that just sort of sounds obvious. He is good at that particular skill. This is a very much uphill climb for Derrick Lewis.
All right, how about the other half of that main event? And we talked about Lewis, the hometown guy. He's on a 4-fight win streak with his last 2 wins coming via knockout. Many think this is a tough style matchup for Lewis. Luke, what does Lewis need to do to capture this heavyweight gold?
There's two things I would say that are really going to be important for him, not just in this bout, but generally. But as it relates to this particular occasion, he's got huge power. I mean, he's got absolutely, if not one-punch knockout power, which you saw in his last fight against Curtis Blades, maybe one of the tougher opponents of his career, by the way. And he viciously one-punch KO'd him. But obviously, he's got good ground and pound you see there against Innocente. And throughout the course of his career, he's just had an ability to change the fight on a dime with one shot. You saw that against Volkov as well. The other thing he has through his experience is extraordinary patience. And sometimes he'll set traps by even pretending to be hurt. But more than that, if he gets put in a bad position, he doesn't freak out and try to escape. He waits just for the right time and then makes a big explosive movement and actually conserves his energy and makes him potent over the long haul. I think you're going to need those things. I also think he's going to need some urgency. If you have a game where a situation is where Ciryl Gane has room to move, room to strike, room to get in and out, and the time that goes with it, that's not a winnable fight for Derrick Lewis. He has to hurry it up. He has to pressure this guy and let that big power shine.
Yeah, to echo what Luke said right there, if you're going to sit and wait around against Ciryl Gane, he doesn't make mistakes. That's why he has looked very much like championship ready, like a veteran for a fighter who has such limited octagon time up to this point. If you're Derrick Lewis, you can't just be all or nothing with the home run, which has been his calling card. He's going to have to mix in the kind of little shots here and there, touch Ciryl Gane, use powerful touches to slow him down. That can come in the form of calf strikes. That can come in the form of body punches. Either way, we know Ciryl Gane can switch stances and dance circles around Lewis to give Lewis a better chance of landing that big knockout blow. He's going to have to be a little bit more active and set in the kind of shots that set some of those traps and maybe slow Gane down a bit.
All right, gentlemen, let's get a pick for this main event. Does the power of Lewis shine in H-Town, or does the technical know-how in terms of a Gane, a fighter that can come away with the belt on Saturday night? Which one does? BC, you start us off.
Well, look at nearly plus 300, the odds there. If you love the underdog, the one-punch chance type of guy, Derrick Lewis is the ultimate one-punch chance type of guy, and he's fighting in his backyard. The fans will be wild for him. We've seen fans in the U.S. of UFC fights cheer lustfully against foreign fighters. So if you like that, take Derrick Lewis. But I've seen enough of Ciryl Gane to know that I've seen too much, right? Too much of a good thing at this point. He can win rounds, as Luke said. His footwork can allow him to really dance circles around his opponents. You're going to need to see Ciryl Gane be careful not to overextend himself. Be careful as a point fighter to really rely on his jab. But if he does just that and stays out of trouble, this is a very winnable fight. The odds show that. Go with the skills here. The only real difference on the betting here is I say go with the over. I don't think Ciryl Gane has the consistent power to finish Lewis, short of Derrick Lewis blowing out his own gas tank. I think Lewis will be potent for all 5 rounds, but this is Ciryl Gane's decision to win.
Yeah, I'm going to have to echo Brian here. This is a hard fight for Derrick Lewis stylistically. Now, to be fair, there's been many times where he's been the betting underdog and has proven to be the victor. In fact, in his last contest where he knocked out Curtis Blades, it was exactly that. We all thought Blades was going to wrestle him to the ground for however long the fight lasted, and that just did not really happen. Derrick Lewis has thunderous power, as we've already articulated. Still, I don't really know what the skills are he has where he can corner effectively Ciryl Gane. That is something that has to be developed. You can have big power, but if you can't ever find the time to let it go effectively, what good does it do you? On top of that, while I don't think Ciryl Gane is like the most tremendous power puncher, although he does have some on occasion, look out for the body work. Ciryl Gane will go to the body a lot. That has been something with Derrick Lewis that's been a bit of a real Achilles heel for him, not just a weakness, but a known sort of obvious, really debilitating weakness that a lot of other opponents have exploited. I think Ciryl Gane is going to be eating him up with middle kicks and teeps all night long, and that may close the show a little earlier. I like Ciryl Gane to get it done inside 3.
All right. Co-main was originally supposed to be Amanda Nunes against Juliana Pena, but the fight was scrapped after Nunes tested positive for COVID-19. Instead, Brazilian legend Jose Aldo and Pedro Munoz square off, get bumped to the co-main slot. Luke, who do you have winning this fight and why?
tell you, it's pretty fun, pretty competitive, pretty different, a little bit hard to say exactly which way it's going to go. Jose Aldo, obviously the much more decorated competitor over the course of his career, but not so much in the bantamweight division, although recently he's a little bit better than he did against Peter Yan. Jimmy Rivera's had his ups, he's had his downs too, but here's the difference for me. Pedro Munoz has phenomenal power, believe it or not, and actually a really good guillotine. He can snatch into that thing very, very quickly. The difference for me is that he takes a lot of abuse. If you look at his numbers, he is either averaging in terms of landing or absorbing 6 strikes a minute. Folks, that is very, very high. That is someone who will stand in the pocket to deliver a big shot, and sometimes it works out for him really well. But Jose Aldo has great slipping, great head movement, great trunk movement. He gets in and out of position. This may be a bit of a dogfight. By the way, Jose Aldo could, change things up in the way he does stuff, but I expect him to land and get out of the way, and I expect Pedro Munoz, who likes to pressure opponents, to walk into a lot of what Jose Aldo is throwing. But Pedro Munoz, tough, experienced, talented. Still, I like Jose Aldo to win.
Yeah, Luke said bit of a dogfight. I think this is going to turn into an absolute war. And when it gets to that point, despite how evenly they are matched, they're both from Brazil, both heavy counterpunchers. Look, they were born 2 days apart in the same year, both 34 years old. The difference, though, Aldo's championship experience, Aldo's 5-inch reach advantage, and I think Aldo is the bigger striker in this one. I don't think, despite the age and despite moving down in weight, that Jose Aldo's close to being done. I think there's a lot left in that tank. He's a headhunter at bantamweight, and Pedro Munoz is sometimes too willing to get into that phone booth and let it go. When that happens, Jose Aldo will be the last man standing.
Third fight on the main card. It's a matchup of top 10 welterweights. Vicente Luque, Michael Chiesa. A winner of this fight could find themselves on the doorsteps of a title shot. BC, who do you have in this classic striker versus grappler matchup?
Yeah, you highlighted it there, Jim. Perfect style contrast. But here's the difference between them. Vicente Luque may have won 9 of 10. Most of those, though, let's be honest, they've come against certain level of competition. When he has stepped up higher in his career, he hasn't been exactly the same. The real question is, what is Chiesa? Is he in that conversation too, or is he higher? I think Michael Chiesa is peaking at the right time. I like his ground game to control Luque's aggressive, striking, moving forward style. At the end of the day, this may not be the most exciting fight if Chiesa has the upper hand, but I think he is the fighter peaking at a higher rate at this point. Luque sometimes reaches to a reckless style that gets him to a higher level of ability, but when you meet your equals, that can be a detriment in the long run. I think Chiesa's wrestling, grappling game, his submission threats on the ground, they're going to be too much over 3 rounds.
Yeah, another tough call, but I like BC's recitation here. I think Chiesa will probably get it done. It's just really hard to know. Listen, as BC indicated, we've seen Luque around this division a long time, and he stepped up to a lot of different high-level guys. And when he stepped up to the truly elite, like the top 5, it necessarily didn't go his way. Yes, he beat Tyron Woodley, who was a former champion, but Woodley, that was the last fight before he got bounced from UFC. So it's hard to say exactly that's a real clear top 5 win. Still, outside of that, he has been an absolute sledgehammer. I mean, that's been the real dividing line. The question is Chiesa destined for top 5 space, or is he not? As you also indicated, Jim, this is a situation of grappler versus striker. Now, Luque is well-rounded, and he does have his own submissions. Still, the control, the overwhelming size, bit of submission threat as well, guard passing for Michael Chiesa. The only thing to pay attention to here is how the referee treats it if Michael Chiesa is doing well. He does not have a ton of volume. He lands less than 2 strikes a minute on average. That is not at all a high amount of volume. And if you can't really do a whole lot with the position, referee might stand it up, and it goes right back to being Luque's fight. Something to watch. I still, though, will slightly lean towards Michael Chiesa.
All right, great insight on the focus of UFC 265 from Luke Thomas and Brian Campbell. Our thanks to both. And for more from Brian Campbell and Luke Thomas, be sure to download and subscribe the Morning Combat Podcast. Listen to Brian and Luke break down UFC 265 and all things combat sports. It's the Morning Combat Podcast. Download and subscribe today.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.